So if you look at the right-wing press or the right in general, they are constantly on the rise on the same thing that, oh my word, Europe's about to have this massive far right turn. It's going to be absolutely wonderful, amazing. Oh, aren't we all going to be singing, all kumbaya together, working together to deliver this new right-wing future? The reality is, that could not be any more further from the truth. You want an example of right-wing governments working together, and I have to use air quotes for working together in the biggest possible terms I can. Just look at the agreement once tried to strike, or at least tried, by the right-wing governments of both Hungary and Italy. And this was an immigration deal. They knew that there was this route going through them and that they were going to block off this route. That this was going to sort of finally block off. This was going to solve the immigration problems. They did all this fantastic announcements. They signed this big new deal, etc. What happened? Fell apart within the first week almost because they could not agree who should actually take the asylum seekers, even after going through all that fanfare. They seem to have completely forgotten that minor detail. And as a result, these two right-wing governments that were going to make sure that they turned Europe around and showed this new dawn, barely a week they were working together and it fell to pieces. And of course, once again, the right-wing press and many right-wingers across Europe are now saying the same thing about Geert Wilders, the aka the Flying Dutchman, and how he is going to come in and he is going to radically change Europe for the better, and it is going to be absolutely wonderful and fantastic. Well, here's the thing. Turns out that, not to anyone's surprise, this guy has absolutely zero friends in Europe. So we're going to have a look at a piece that Dennis McShane, the former Minister for Europe under Labour, wrote a piece about this and why this guy, not only does he have very little chance of actually becoming the Dutch Prime Minister, but should he ever actually get that position, he's not going to sort of implement too much change. Because turns out, as we'll also see, right-wing groups, nationalist groups, don't actually like working together. So for all that bluster and bravado that we very often see from these types of people, they don't actually get a lot of stuff done, as we've experienced ourselves over the past couple of years. But there you go. So anyway, before we do get more into this, please do remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page, the one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can buy me coffee. And of course, the YouTube thank you button. And of course, the Pony Club down below as well. So let's crack on and into this, because I think this is quite a good example of what I've just been talking about. These right-wingers just can't get along. They can't work together at all. So this is from the article. The title is "The Flying Dutchman Has No Friends in Europe." So, Britain's most ardently now pro-Brexit media have been excited at the formation of a new Dutch government last week. It seems to tick all the boxes of the modern rightist ideology: hostile to the European Union, immigrants, net zero, and taxpayers' subsidies flowing to citizens, and outfits that should be made to stand on their own feet. They should now, of course, hold their breath. When Geert Wilders, the leader of the Dutch Party of Freedom, came top in the Dutch parliamentary election last November, there was a similar excitement, and the onward march of the new identity right was unstoppable. Wilders' marches hostility against Islam and hostility with the European Commission, which he accuses of redistributing honest Dutch taxpayers' money to lazy Italians and other Europeans he doesn't like. So once again, remember what I just said at the beginning, that these right-wingers cannot work together. That very instant statement that, oh, all this Dutch taxpayers' money is going to, lazy Italians or, other Europeans he doesn't like. How on earth is he going to work with the right wing government in Italy, even if they have similar objectives or at least similar, should we say, goals? Their objectives aren't going to be the same. They are going to be potentially wide miles apart. This is why I brought up the beginning of uh, the um, the immigration agreement between Italy and Hungary about that, because it fell apart within a week of them of them doing it. Uh, Turns out they don't play nice together. So back to it. So his party has only one member, Geert Wilders, and he will not be the Dutch Prime Minister. Having him as the front person for the Netherlands was not acceptable to Mark Rutte's Liberal Party, nor even the Citizen Farmers Party, nor even the fourth party in the new ruling coalition, the Socialist Contract Party. So, as you can see, no one wanted him to be Prime Minister. All these other parties that would have a lot more power, the fact that he's only got, he himself is there, what power really is he going to wield except maybe be a figurehead, maybe make some, extreme, wild and wacky speeches? But there you go. Nevertheless, this long, detailed coalition contract now laying out what these four parties want contains several measures which may come as a surprise to fellow members of the ALDE. This is the Pan-European Alliance of Liberal Parties, in which the outgoing Prime Minister, Mark Rutte, has been a fixture for at least a decade, and to which both Emmanuel Macron's ruling Renaissance Party and our own Liberal Democrats belong. So measures, of course, along the Dutch border are right out of Nigel Farage's Richard Trice's playbook. Major limits on all forms of immigration, new policies included to try and repudiate the recent EU Immigration Act, which includes enforcement of returns, including the use of third countries that are safe in human rights terms to place the undocumented immigrants, such as refugees, while their cases are processed. This EU pact, which opened the ways to a now Rwanda style measures, is tough, but this is apparently not tough enough for Wilders. So this is something that we are actually seeing. This idea of, oh, we can, send, asylum seekers and etc. to a third country. We aren't alone in thinking that this is, quote, a good idea. I have to use that in air quotes, good idea to do. We are not alone. We've seen other countries look at this and can we do this as well? So hey, for all those people commenting about how bad we were doing it, um, your own governments might have been thinking along those similar lines. Um, but there you go. So, of course, more significantly are now the calls to reduce downwards all EU transfer payments from rich to poor countries, and especially to major beneficiaries of the common agricultural policy of these handouts. These countries are in the east or southeast of the EU, far away from the Dutch. So, again, not paying into things like the new sort of Eastern Bloc countries, Bulgaria, etc., for example, have really benefited from a lot of these EU payment stuff. The common agriculture policy, again, is not perfect. Definitely does need a lot of work, but arguing that itself could take a long time. It's far easier just to say, well, we're not going to do that. But will they actually achieve this? It's not very likely, to be honest, as we'll find out in a moment. So, there is only one problem. Many of Mr. Wilders' fellow nationalists, anti immigration, populist identitarians like France's Marine Le Pen, Italy's Giorgia Meloni, and Hungary's Viktor Orban, or Slovenia's now badly wounded Robert Fico, are very keen to see EU's taxpayers' money flow to their farmers or their poor regions. Like I say, these outflows, this money, the development funds have proven very, very good. Now, of course, Orban, um, the corruption in Hungary is crazy. It's off the scale. There's a lot of projects in there that are Well, empty field where there should be big office blocks, etc., built in these places, but they're not. This is one of the reasons why a lot of people are angry at Hungary, at Viktor Orban for not tackling a lot of this corruption that's going on. That's why a lot of the money has sort of stopped flowing to Hungary. But of course, Viktor Orban relies on these for his own country's economy, and of course, it's not a good look if your country starts falling apart the second this, shall we say, money tap gets turned off. So back to it. So to reduce or even reverse the monies paid by the Netherlands to the EU funds managed by Brussels commissions needs now a unanimous vote of the 27 independent sovereign nations. So, as we said, chances of that happening, zero. There is, of course, no evidence of the boyfriend-haired Wilders having even a single friend amongst his fellow national firsters and Muslim phobes, hoping now to overturn the existing European governments on the continent. And they don't. They really don't. They just do not have enough friends. They do not have enough power. So one thing you've got to really take away from this is this whole thing you're seeing about, oh, Europe's going far right, Europe's going all this. It is a couple of these quite somewhat significant victories, but then the reality is they don't have power. They don't have friends even further in Europe. These, as we've seen, Wilders, Le Pen, Maloney, Orban might have similar ideas, but how they want to achieve it, where they want to end up, vastly different from each other. So they can't even agree on a lot of the stuff they would like to do, even though maybe they've got the same ideas on some of these projects. So back to it. So obviously, Marine Le Pen, for example, is now locked in a permanent angry argument with the extreme right Germany AfD party, which he is now accusing of stirring up independence and secessionist violence in New Caledonia, a French territory in the Pacific. And the ADF is the last party left on the EU in the EU's new right that praises Brexit and suggests that Germany might follow Britain's example. So, as you can see there, Marie Le Pen arguing with her, quote, fellow rightists. Do you think these people are going to play ball with each other for long? So, the European right has the now anti-immigration wind now in its sails, but it shares very other few common ideas and policies. Wilders can be named the Dutch Prime Minister, but he cannot change Europe. So that is honestly the reality of where we are. And I think that's quite refreshing on many people, where we've heard or at least seen this massive sort of, bluster of, oh my God, Europe's going hard right, Europe's going hard right. But as was said there, and, I pointed out at the beginning with that, immigration deal with Italy and Hungary took a week before it fell apart. As was pointed out there, you've got the argument with Le Pen and the ADF in Germany. Do you think if there was this far right resurgence that suddenly all these people are going to come together and start singing from the same hymn sheet? No, they're not. They are all going to be pulling at different directions because ideology and ideas, they might be on maybe similar playbooks, but just like the flip your own adventure books, one's turning to page 52, the other one's going to page 55. They're going off in vastly different routes of what they want to sort of achieve themselves. And ultimately, these are people that at the end of the day cannot play ball with each other. So, as much as we are hearing about the rise of the far right, yeah, they might maybe attain some positions, they might win some elections, but the reality of them changing Europe or doing things like this doesn't really seem to be in the cards for them. So a little bit of hope and optimism for you all and on just reality of maybe what's going on there in Europe, the rise of the far right. So as always, thank you very much for watching. And of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.